Ethan woke to the sound of alarms screaming in his ears and the taste of smoke on his tongue. His escape pod had slammed into something hard and now lay tilted on its side, half buried in glowing mud. His body ached and his head throbbed as if someone had driven a spike through his skull. For a moment, he couldn't remember where he was. Then the memories came in a rush: the research ship, the sudden attack, flashes of fire in the blackness of space, and the feeling of falling. He coughed and pushed himself up, blinking through cracked glass to see a jungle unlike anything he had ever imagined. Giant trees glowed faint blue, their leaves pulsing like living lanterns. Strange calls echoed from deep in the forest, sounds that felt too close for comfort. His survival instincts screamed, "Get out!" The hatch was jammed. But Ethan forced it open, falling into mud that was warm and almost alive beneath his hands. His suit sensors flickered with warnings: radiation pockets, low oxygen, but he had a breather mask. He strapped it on and checked the pistol on his belt. Not much ammo, not much hope. He looked up at the alien sky. 2 suns, 1 gold, 1 pale blue, bleeding strange light across clouds that curled like smoke. His heart pounded as he scanned for movement. Then he saw her dot at first. He thought it was a trick of light silver skin shimmering between glowing vines. But then the figure stepped closer, silent as a shadow. A woman, or at least something shaped like one, with tall, elegant limbs and hair like liquid silver falling down her back. Her eyes glowed faintly, a soft white light that made his pulse jump. She wasn't human. He froze, his hand instinctively gripping the pistol. The alien didn't raise her weapon, but she had one sleek and black, cradled in her arms, like an extension of her body. They stared at each other, 2 predators. Trying to read intent, the alien spoke first. Her voice was low, melodic, but sharp at the edges. The words weren't English, but his translator chip caught enough fragments. Human, here, why? Ethan kept his hands visible, heart hammering. Ship down, he said slowly, pointing to the wreck behind him. Crash, I'm not here to fight. The alien tilted her head, as if weighing his honesty. Her gaze flicked toward the trees, and her body tensed. Then Ethan heard it 2 low thuds, distant but growing louder, like boots or claws on soil. Something was coming, she cursed, in a language he didn't know, and moved fast, closing the distance between them in seconds. Before he could react, her hand gripped his arm, strong as steel. She spoke again, urgent now. The translator stuttered, "Come. Move, danger." Ethan didn't argue. She pulled him into the glowing jungle, her movement smooth and almost too fast for his eyes to follow. Branches whipped past his face as they ran, glowing insects scattering like sparks in the air. Behind them, the sounds grew louder: alien voices, barking orders, metal clashing, something big moving in the dark. They stopped near a ridge, breath misting in the cool air. Ethan pressed his back to a massive root, trying to catch his breath. "What is that?" he whispered. She looked at him, eyes narrowing, then pointed to the tree line. Shapes were emerging: tall figures in jagged armor, carrying plasma rifles that hummed with deadly energy. Mercenaries, he guessed, or soldiers, hunting her. Hunting them now. He glanced at her weapon, then at the scar running along her arm, glowing faintly under her skin. She was injured, but still dangerous. And yet, instead of leaving him, she had dragged him with her. "Why help me?" he asked, voice low. She didn't answer, just scanned the jungle with eyes that seemed to pierce the dark. Then she moved again, pulling him deeper into the forest, always ahead of the hunter's lights. They crossed a stream, glowing like liquid. Stars climbed roots as big as walls, and slipped through narrow gaps in ancient stone ruins half swallowed by vines. Finally, They reached a hollow beneath twisted roots, hidden from sight. She dropped to one knee, breathing hard, and Ethan saw her hand trembling as she pressed it to her side. That's when he noticed the blood. It wasn't red. It glowed faint. Blue, like neon light seeping through her skin. Ethan stared, frozen. She was bleeding badly. His instincts kicked in training, field med protocol. He crawled closer, raising his hands slowly so she wouldn't shoot him. "You're hurt," he said softly. "Let me help." She looked at him with sharp suspicion. Then her gaze softened just a little, as if exhaustion had stripped away. "The walls." Slowly, she nodded. Ethan tore open his med kit and reached for bandages. But the moment he touched her skin, he felt something strange. Her body was too warm, almost vibrating under his fingers, like energy caged beneath flesh. "Stay still," he murmured, wrapping her wound. But then his breath caught. The skin near her ribs shifted, moved, as if something alive pulsed under the surface. For a heartbeat, he thought he saw light flicker beneath bone. A second heartbeat echoing against his palm. Or was it a third? He froze, staring at her in shock. She noticed, her lips curving into the faintest smile, sharp and knowing. "Do not touch the third core," she whispered, her voice soft but warning, and then her eyes fluttered shut. Outside, the jungle shook with the sound of something hunting them. Ethan stared at her glowing blood, his heart pounding. Third core? What did that mean? He didn't know yet, but he had the feeling his life had just crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. Asterisk. Ethan's hands shook as he pressed the bandage against her wound. The blue glow dimmed slightly, but the heat coming from her skin was unreal, like touching a live wire that hummed softly beneath flesh. He stared at her face as she lay still, silver hair spilling across the roots, her breath shallow but steady. For the first time since the crash, silence wrapped around him. Silence, except for the distant hum of something mechanical drifting through the forest mercenaries, still searching. Then her eyes opened. He flinched. Those glowing eyes locked on his, sharp but unfocused, like a predator waking from a tranquilizer. Her lips parted, and a whisper slid out, barely more than breath. "You touched it." Ethan froze. "Touched what?" She didn't answer immediately. Her gaze flicked to his hands, still resting near her ribs, then back to his face. There was something there, a warning, but also something else. Fear? Pride? He couldn't tell. "I was only trying to stop the bleeding," he said quickly. "You were dying." She gave a small sound, almost like a laugh but hollow, and pushed herself upright. He tried to steady her, but she shoved his hands away, staggering until her back hit the root wall. "Do not touch the third core," she said again, firmer this time. The words sent a chill crawling down his spine. Third core. What the hell did that mean? Humans had hearts, lungs, organs, he understood. But this? He couldn't stop staring at the faint glow still pulsing under her skin, like lightning trapped in a glass cage. Before he could ask, a sharp metallic crack split the air. Both their heads snapped toward the sound rifle discharge, not far off. Lyra, he remembered her name now. She'd said it once as she pulled in through the forest, reached for her weapon. Movement stiff, but quick. "They are close," she hissed. Ethan grabbed his pistol. "Then we move," he said, but she shook her head. Her knees buckled, and he barely caught her before she hit the ground. Up close, he saw the truth. The wound wasn't her only problem. Something inside her body was fighting itself. Her skin rippled in places it shouldn't, muscles twitching like they had minds of their own. A low hum vibrated from her chest, and for a second, her eyes burned brighter, too bright. Ethan stepped back instinctively. "What's happening to you?" She looked at him, jaw tight. For a long moment, The answer seemed caught in her throat. Then, in a voice rough with exhaustion, she said, "My kind, we are not like you. We have 3 cores. 2 you will understand. 1 you will fear." She winced as a tremor shook. Her frame then fixed him with a hard stare. "That is what they want, the 3rd. If they take it, they can tear a world apart." Ethan felt the weight of those words hit him like a punch. Tear a world apart. He wanted to laugh, to call it an exaggeration, but the look in her eyes stole the breath from his lungs. This wasn't some alien metaphor. This was real. He swallowed, hard, glancing toward the glowing trees where shadows moved closer. "Then we keep them from getting it," he said. Her lips curved faintly, almost mocking. "You speak as if it is simple." "I speak as if I owe you," he shot back. "You saved me. I'm not leaving you here." A distant howl rose from the jungle metallic, like an engine fused with an animal's throat. Lyra's face hardened. "Then you will run," she said, pushing herself up again. Her legs trembled, but she gritted her teeth and forced them to obey. Ethan slung her arm over his shoulder, despite her protest. "Running sounds good," he muttered, scanning for cover. They stumbled into the deeper forest, neon leaves brushing against their faces, shadows stretching long and strange under the double suns. After what felt like hours, but was likely minutes, they found shelter, a half-collapsed ruin glowing faintly, with old alien tech. Ethan set her down against a wall, etched with symbols that shimmered in soft blue light. He crouched, catching his breath, then glanced at her. "You going to tell me more about this 3rd thing?" She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes drifted to the symbols, and something in them changed recognition, maybe even longing. Then very slowly she said, "If you stay, you will see, and you will not forget." He frowned. "Stay? Like I have anywhere else to be." He tried for a smile, but his pulse wouldn't settle. There was too much he didn't understand, and yet every second near her dragged him deeper into something dangerous. He didn't know why, but he couldn't walk away. Not now. The ruin hummed softly, lights flickering as if sensing their presence. Ethan reached for his scanner, curious, and let it sweep over her body. The readout flickered with warnings and anomalies multiple. Energy signatures, 3 rhythmic pulses. His brow furrowed, confusion turning into shock. "Wait," he breathed, staring at the data. "You've got 3. His voice cracked louder than he meant, echoing in the ruin. Lyra's gaze snapped to him, sharp as a blade. "Ethan," she said slowly, her voice like the edge of a storm. "Turn that off. Now." Outside, footsteps crunched against the alien soil. The mercenaries were closing in. Ethan killed the scanner in a heartbeat, the device flickering out as the sound of boots and metallic claws grew louder outside the ruin. His pulse thundered in his ears. He looked at Lyra, her face pale against the silver glow of the walls, her breathing sharp and shallow. Something about her posture told him what he didn't want to believe. She was running out of time. The sound came again. Not footsteps this time. A voice, low and guttural, speaking in a language his translator could barely keep up with. The tone, however, was clear. Threats, promises of pain. They were close. Very close. Ethan gripped his pistol, feeling how useless. It suddenly was against soldiers in heavy armor. He turned to Lyra. "We have to move. Now." She looked up slowly, her glowing eyes narrowing, not at him, but at the doorway, where slivers of white light cut through the vines. They brought hunters, she whispered. Ethan frowned. Hunters? We're already being hunted. But then he heard the sound that didn't belong to soldiers. It was heavier, wetter, like something with too many legs dragging across the ground. Then came the hiss, a sound that vibrated deep inside his bones. Ethan's mouth went dry. What the hell is that? Lyra pushed herself up, teeth clenched against the pain ripping through her body. When she spoke, her voice was like ice, a Trask beast, engineered to smell the third core. It will find me. Her gaze flicked too. Him then, sharp and almost afraid. And you. Ethan's mind reeled. He wasn't trained for this. He was a xenobiologist, not a soldier. But the way her hands trembled as she reached for her rifle told him what he needed to know. She wasn't in any shape to fight alone. He checked his pistol, 3 rounds left, then grabbed her arm. Come on. They slipped out through a crack. In the ruins wall, vines pulling at their clothes as they crawled into the jungle. The forest was alive with light, every leaf pulsing softly, like 1,000 eyes watching them flee. Above, the twin suns had started to dip, painting the sky in fire and frost. Shadows grew long, and the air thickened with mist that smelled faintly of metal. Every breath felt loud. Every heartbeat a drum. Ethan stole a glance at Lyra as they ran. Her jaw was tight, her silver hair plastered to her skin with sweat. Every few steps, a shudder ran through her body, and for a flicker of a second, he saw something shift beneath her skin, like an extra joint or bone pressing against the surface before sliding away again. It made his stomach lurch, but he couldn't look away. What was she becoming? They broke into a clearing, ringed by black stone pillars carved with symbols that glowed like fireflies. Lyra staggered, dropping to one knee. We stop here, she rasped. Ethan crouched beside her, panic clawing at his throat. You can't stop. They will find us no matter where we run, she said, eyes blazing in the dim light. But here I have a chance. She pressed her palm against the stone, and the symbols flared brighter, a low hum rippling through the air like a heartbeat. The ground trembled beneath Ethan's knees. What are you doing? He asked, voice cracking. Calling the old ones. She whispered, the ones who made this place. The ones who gave us the cores. Her voice shook, not with fear but something heavier, something ancient. Then the sound hit them, a roar that didn't belong in any sane world. The trees bent. As something massive moved between them, glowing eyes flickering like lanterns in the dark. The Trask beast had arrived. Ethan's instincts screamed to run, but his legs wouldn't obey. The thing that stepped into the clearing was wrong in every way. Its body was a patchwork of armor and flesh, long limbs ending in curved hooks that dripped something black. Its face, or what passed for one, was a mask of jagged metal plates with vents that hissed steam into the night. And then it opened its jaws, revealing rows of teeth that pulsed with blue light. It smelled her. He knew it without doubt. It smelled the thing inside her. Lyra rose slowly, using the stone for balance, her rifle hanging from her hand. Her body trembled, and then before Ethan's eyes it changed. Subtly, but enough to make his breath catch. Her spine arched, her shoulders widening as if invisible hands were pulling her apart. Her skin shimmered, rippling like molten metal. And for a second, 3 distinct pulses of light beat beneath it. 3 hearts. 3 cores. Ethan whispered, barely able to breathe. What? Are you? She turned her head toward him, glowing eyes like twin moons in the dark, and said, what they fear most. Then the beast lunged. Ethan raised his pistol. Lyra moved faster than his eyes could follow. Blue light burst across the clearing as ancient symbols burned like stars. The air filled with the sound of something breaking metal, bone, maybe reality itself. And then silence. When Ethan dared to look again, the Trask beast was gone. Or what was left of it steamed in the dirt. Lyra stood in the center, her chest heaving, her skin still glowing like molten silver. But her knees buckled before he could even speak. He caught her as she collapsed against him, her voice a broken whisper in his ear. If you stay, you'll see it all. Before he could answer, a harsh metallic voice cut through the night from the tree line. Found them. Asterisk, the voice that cut through the clearing was cold and metallic, amplified through a helmet speaker. It rolled over the trees like a death. Sentence. Target confirmed. Move in. Ethan's grip on the pistol tightened until his knuckles went white. He turned his head just enough to glimpse shadows sliding between the glowing trees tall, armored and carrying weapons that hummed with lethal power. At least 6, maybe more. His gut told him that even one was enough to kill them both. Lyra stirred in his arms, her breath hot against his neck. When her eyes opened, they burned like liquid stars. She tried to stand, but her legs shook violently, and for the first time, Ethan saw something like fear flicker across her face. Not fear for herself, fear for what might happen if she lost control. They can't have it, she whispered, voice raw. Not the third core. Then we run, Ethan said, but even as the words left his mouth, he knew there was no running. No, the mercenaries were too close. He could hear the crunch of their boots, the low buzz of drones circling like mechanical vultures. The only cover was the alien stone pillars, and the symbols etched on them were still glowing faintly, pulsing like a heartbeat that wasn't his. Lyra pushed herself upright, every movement shaking with effort. Her rifle swung in her hands. But Ethan saw the truth. She was too weak to fight all of them. The wound, a strain of using whatever energy burned in her blood. It was eating her alive. Then the mercenaries stepped into the clearing. They were giants in black and scarlet. Armor, their visors glowing crimson. The leader strode forward, a hulking figure with plated limbs and a plasma blade that hissed like fire when it touched the damp air. His voice cut through the silence, cold and absolute. Human, he said, his visor locking on Ethan. Give. U.S. the girl. Walk away breathing. Ethan's heart slammed against his ribs. He knew the smart move. Drop the gun, step back, live another day. Lyra wasn't his problem. She wasn't even his species. But when he looked at her, at the bruises blooming on her silver skin, at the defiance still blazing in her eyes, realized something that made his throat tighten. She had dragged him from death when she could have left him behind. She had trusted him with her secret, a secret that could probably end civilizations. And now she was looking at him like someone who expected betrayal. No deal, Ethan said. The leader tilted his head. You think you matter? You're a fragging animal to us. A stray. He gestured lazily, and 2 mercenaries leveled rifles at Ethan's chest. Last chance. Asterisk. Ethan raised his pistol, his hand steady now, voice like iron. Come and take her. The clearing exploded into chaos. Plasma fire scorched the air as Ethan dove behind a stone pillar, dragging Lyra with him. Heat slammed against his back like a burning wall. He fired twice 2 clean shots into a merc's visor. The alien dropped with a screech, armor cracking like glass. But there were too many. Bolts tore chunks out of the stone as Ethan ducked. Heart hammering like war drums. Then he saw Lyra move. Not just move, change. Her body twisted in ways that made his brain stutter, her silhouette stretching, her limbs elongating with a fluid grace that was terrifying and mesmerizing at once. Light bled from her skin, pouring like molten silver as plates of living armor bloomed across her frame. The wound on her side sealed in a burst of blue fire. When she opened her eyes again, they were no longer eyes, they were burning stars. Ethan froze, awe and fear tangling in his gut. Lyra, she didn't look at him. She looked at the mercenaries. And then she moved. Asterisk. It wasn't speed, it was obliteration. One moment she was there, the next she was a storm of light and steel, ripping through armored giants like paper. Her blade wasn't metal anymore. It was part of her, grown from her arm, glowing with energy that howled as it cut. Screams filled the clearing, cut short by thunderclaps of impact as mercenaries fell like broken dolls. Ethan watched, throat dry, as she crushed the last one beneath her hand, her claws punching through the helmet. Like it was nothing. Silence crashed down, broken only by the hiss of cooling plasma. Then she turned to him. For a heartbeat, he didn't see Lyra. He saw something older, something born for war, something that shouldn't exist. Her voice was low, guttural, like two tones speaking at once. "This is what you wanted to see?" Ethan swallowed hard, forcing words past the lump in his throat. "I just wanted you alive." She stared at him for a long, unreadable moment. Then the glow dimmed. The armor melted away, leaving her trembling and bare beneath the silver sheen of her skin. She stumbled, and Ethan caught her before she hit the ground. Her breath was ragged as she whispered into his ear, voice breaking, almost human again. "You should run. I won't hold it back much longer." Ethan looked at the blood-smeared clearing, and at her, glowing faintly like a dying star. And for the first time, he understood whatever the third core was. It wasn't just power. It was a curse. Before he could answer, a deep rumble rolled through the forest, shaking the earth. And then, from the tree line, a voice boomed like thunder. Cold and merciless. "You should have run, human." Ethan turned his head slowly and saw the one enemy he hadn't counted on. Commander Rax himself, stepping into the clearing with something in his hand that hummed like the heart of a star. Ethan dragged Lyra through the shattered clearing, his breath ragged as plasma fire faded into the distance. Behind them, the trees still glowed with the aftermath of slaughter, the soil smoking where mercenaries had fallen. Commander Rax hadn't followed, not yet. But Ethan felt the weight of that voice like a blade pressed to his spine. He knew. It was only a matter of time. The jungle swallowed them whole. Mist clung to the ground like a living thing, glowing faintly in the alien moonlight. Each step was a fight root snagged at Ethan's boots. His arms burned from Lyra's weight, and his chest screamed for air. But he didn't stop. Not when she lay limp against him, silver hair matted with blood that wasn't entirely hers. Not when her body burned hotter than fire, trembling with every shuddering breath. He found a cave by accident, a jagged wound in the cliffside, black and yawning. He slipped inside, the cool air a shock after the jungle's heat. Shadows stretched long, broken only by the faint blue glow bleeding from Lyra's skin. He lowered her gently onto the stone floor and tore open his medkit with shaking hands. "Stay with me," he muttered, voice hoarse. He pressed a sealant patch to her wound, watching it fizz against alien flesh. But it wasn't the wound that scared him. It was the way her body kept twitching, her muscles rippling like waves under her skin. Something inside her wanted out. Her eyes fluttered open, glowing softly in the dark. "You should have left," she whispered. Ethan's jaw tightened. "Not an option." She gave a weak laugh, bitter and soft, like water running over broken glass. "You don't understand what you've chained yourself to." "Then explain it to me," he said, crouching close, his face inches from hers. "Because all I see is someone who saved me and needs saving now." Her breath hitched, and for a moment, the steel in her eyes cracked. He saw something raw fear, not of death, but of herself. Slowly, she lifted her hand, her fingers trembling as they brushed his wrist. Her skin was too warm, her pulse too. Fast, like a storm raging under glass. "The third core," she began, voice barely a whisper. "It is not an organ. It is a forge, a living engine. It changes us, shapes us into what the war demands. My kind, we were made for survival, but survival has a cost." Her lips trembled as her gaze locked on his. "Once it fully awakens, there is no going back, no peace, only hunger. Power without mercy. Ethan swallowed hard. And you're afraid of that. I'm afraid. Her voice cracked, the words breaking apart like ash in the wind. I'm afraid I won't know you when it's done. Or worse, I'll know you. And I'll still. She didn't finish, but the silence carried the weight of it. For a long moment, neither spoke. The cave hummed faintly with distant echoes, the scent of alien flowers drifting on the cold air. Ethan reached up, fingers brushing her cheek. Her skin felt like warm glass, trembling under his touch. Listen to me, he said quietly, his voice low and certain. You're still you. I don't care how many cores you've got. You saved me when you didn't have to. That's who you are. That's all I need to know. Her breath shuddered out of her, and something in her eyes softened, like a storm breaking to reveal a fragile sky. Slowly, her hand curled around his, holding on like it was the only thing tethering her to the world. For the first time, Ethan felt the tremor in his own bones, not from fear, but from something he hadn't expected, wanting her to believe. Him, needing her to stay herself. Outside, thunder rolled, a sound too steady, too mechanical to be real storm clouds. Drones, scouts, Rax was closing in. Lyra's head turned weakly toward the sound, her glow pulsing brighter as if responding to danger. Her voice was strained, urgent now. When he comes, I can't hold back. If I lose myself, Ethan. You won't, he cut in, gripping her hand tight. Not while I'm here. She stared at him, eyes wide, glowing like molten silver, and then, before he could say more, her body convulsed. A low, guttural sound tore from her throat as light exploded under her skin. Her back arched, her nails clawing at the stone. The third core was waking. Lyra! Ethan grabbed her shoulders, holding her down as her body writhed like fire made. Flesh. The cave walls burned with reflections of her light, symbols crawling to life on the stone as if the mountain itself was answering her call. And then her voice too. Voices echoed in the dark, fused with something ancient and wrong. There. Here. Before Ethan could turn, the cave mouth lit up with red beams as armored figures poured in, their weapons raised, and at the center of them all Commander Rax, his faceplate glowing like a furnace, his voice cold and final. Step away from her, human. Or die screaming. Asterisk. The cave shook like the heart of a dying world. Red beams swept across jagged walls, slicing shadows into jagged shards. The mercenaries advanced in perfect formation, their armor gleaming like steel, carved from blood. Commander. Rax stood at their center, a mountain of metal and malice, the weapon in his gauntlet, humming with a deep, unnatural thrum, the sound of something stolen from dead stars. Step away, his voice boomed, heavy as falling stone. The girl is ours. Ethan didn't move. He was kneeling by Lyra, his hands braced on either side of her, as light spilled from her body in violent pulses, every flare brighter than the last. The air burned his skin, but he didn't care. Her face twisted in agony, her breath tearing through clenched teeth as the third core fought to claim her. Rax! Her voice came in two tones, now hers, and something deeper, older, echoing like the whisper of a dead god. You will not have me. Rax's helmet tilted, Pakul, smile curling unseen beneath the metal. You think you still have a choice? He lifted the weapon, and the cave filled with a sound like the scream of a sun tearing itself apart. Ethan moved before thought. He lunged, slamming into Lyra as the blast ripped through the air. Heat scorched his back as stone shattered like glass. Pain roared through him, white-hot and endless, but he held her, shielding her with everything left in him. He heard himself scream a raw, animal sound, and then the light swallowed them both. When Ethan opened his eyes, the world was fire and silence. Smoke curled like dying ghosts through the cavern, and his body felt like broken machinery, every piece screaming. He forced himself to move, to look. Lyra was still there, her head resting against his chest, her glow flickering weakly like an ember clinging to life. Ethan, her voice was soft now, fragile as glass, and it tore something inside him because he knew she was fading. Why did you do that? He managed a laugh, bitter and cracked. Because you dragged me out of hell once. Yes, I owed you. His hand cupped her face, trembling. Besides, who else is going to explain all this third core stuff? For a heartbeat, she just stared at him, and then her lips curved, a ghost of a smile breaking through the pain. But the smile didn't last. Her glow flared suddenly, violently, and he felt it, the core awakening in full, a force that didn't belong in flesh. Energy crackled across the stone, blue fire crawling up the walls, alien symbols burning like stars. Ethan, listen. Her voice was breaking, splintering like shattered glass. I can end this. I can stop them. But if I let it take me, there's no coming back. Her eyes locked on his, and for the first time, they weren't a soldier's eyes, they were just hers, raw and terrified. I need you to tell me, do I fight or do I run? The question crushed him. He wanted to say run. He wanted to grab her and tear through the dark and never look back. But behind her, the mercenaries were rising from rubble like armored demons. Rax's laughter rolling like thunder as he powered the weapon for one final strike. If she didn't fight, they would both die. Maybe the whole planet after them. Ethan's throat burned as he whispered the only truth left. You fight. But not alone. Her hand closed over his, small and trembling, and then the cave became a star. Light erupted, a tidal wave of blue fire ripping through rock and steel. Mercenaries screamed as their armor melted into slag, their bodies torn apart in the storm. Rax roared and raised his weapon, but it shattered like glass under the force that rolled from Lyra's core. She rose from the stone, no longer breaking the coming. Her body was a living sun, molten silver and white heat, her voice a symphony of fury and grief as she tore reality apart to end them. When the fire died, silence fell. The cave was gone, half the mountain with it, and the jungle beyond lay scorched under a sky-bleeding starlight. And in the center of the ruin stood Lyra Bear, glowing faintly, her body trembling like a candle in a dying wind. She turned, and Ethan felt his breath catch because for a second he thought she was gone, swallowed by the thing she feared. But then she spoke, her voice cracked and human again. Ethan? He staggered to her, every step agony, and pulled her into his arms before his legs gave out. She collapsed against him, her skin still hot as fire, but her heartbeat steady, 3 rhythms pulsing against his chest. You came back, he whispered, choking on relief. Not all of me, she murmured, a tear glowing silver as it slipped down her cheek. But enough to stay. The jungle stretched silent around them, the mercenaries' ash, the sky a torn canvas of fire and stars. Ethan held her, feeling the heat of her life against his broken bones, and for the first time since the crash, he let himself breathe. Lyra? He said softly, his lips brushing her hair. She hummed faintly, half-conscious. What's it like? Having 3 hearts? A shaky laugh broke through her tears, and for that one fragile moment, the war and the wreckage fell away, leaving only 2 silhouettes under a broken sky, human and alien, bound by blood, fire, and something neither had words for. Far above, the twin suns rose together, painting their bodies in gold and silver as if the universe itself was watching and waiting for what came next. *The end.